kind of do for this first Tuesday after we get our family hug thing going and make sure everyone's doing okay and checking in and seeing how everyone's lives are going. Then we just kind of do this, hey, this is what's happening with the organization. Be aware of this, be aware of that. And then we usually give ourselves a chance to talk, because a lot of us are talkers. And so if at any time you have an interest area that would be of import to us as wordsmiths, as poets. We've had, workshops on Zen poetry and ekphrastic poetry and Mod Po, which Dennis told us all about that as a resource. But whatever you're interested in, if you'd like to give like a 20-minute presentation, we had German poets, past and present. Just absolutely fascinating stuff, where you wouldn't get it really any other place but from our little minds and our little hearts. So we do a little bit of a presentation of interest for about 20-25 minutes. So if at any time you've got something you want to just talk about, an author, a book, a process, a genre, just whatever, let us know, because we can put you on the agenda. And then we usually wrap up the evening with a round robin of poems that you would like to share. It's not a critique circle, it's just mostly just a sharing. And that's really what constitutes our first Tuesday gatherings. So tonight what we were doing, what we kind of have on the table is basically a cafe clatch, where we are teaching each other and just very informally talking about the topic of how do I get through writer's block. Most of us just finished sending in our poems for the annual poetry contest, and I'm sure that there were some bumps in the road and some times that you wish that you were a little bit more creative than you were a moment ago or whatever, but just something that we can teach each other, those resources or those authors or those tricks of the trade that help us enter into the poetic voice, those reasons to get our pen moving. What is it that instills that awe in us as wordsmiths to do what we do? And so if we just kind of do a round, you can pass if you want. If you don't, if you've got some ideas, or hey, these are my tricks of the trade, but I'm interested in more tricks of the trade, then now is the time to share. But like I said, it's very informal, and it's just tonight's job is just to teach each other what we have going, so that we can become better wordsmiths and sharpen our craft and love even more deeply what we do. So I'll just put it out there. Who would like to get us started? And what are some of your tricks of the trade for
Can I ask you a question?
Addressing writer's prop? Yeah.
Can I ask you a question first, just for I want to put in the chat, but I want for everybody, can you just tell everybody your email address so that if they're interested in doing a presentation, they can send you the information?
Yes. Let me give you that. It's DJ Peterson 57. Please send it. I'll give you two of them, at yahoo.com. That's my personal.
Okay.
And then there's the Poetry Society of Indiana.com. And that's our, it's .org. I'm sorry. And that's the one that's.
No, it's Gmail. That's a Gmail.
Gmail. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. If
I only read it, I never send it.
Well, I think I'm going to suggest people email your personal email, because that way you can respond directly to them. Whereas if they send it to the PSI one, then
I check both of them.
Yeah, I know, but so that's. I just wanted people to have that. I put it in the chat. Deborah's email address and the Poetry Society of Indiana email address, so that if you have ideas for mini presentations, just contact her directly. Okay, now back to tonight's coffee clutch, or how do you say that? Cafe clutch.
Alrighty.
I have a Wasser clutch.
Let's sit at the table and let's just talk. How do you address writer's block?
Oh my God, I hate writer's block so much. I have one
Whoever
suggestion.
would like to begin, just jump right in.
I have one suggestion. I'll keep it brief. When I get really bad writer's block, what I try to do is, and I'm a list maker, so forgive me if this sounds rather listy, but I try to think of a word that I really like. And I know that sounds weird, but I love certain words. Like I love the word gingerly, and I love the word rendezvous. And, there's just certain words that I just love so much. And so what I do is I write down that word, and then I try to write down any words. Like if it's like I try to make my brain be a thesaurus. What other words mean that word? And I try to get my brain going down this journey of words until I end up with words that have nothing to do with the first word that I loved, and then I feel like I've got somewhere to jump off to try to write a poem with some word that I found in that journey that inspires me, but it's not that first word that I thought of. So I don't know, that sounds kind of dumb, but that's what I do. I make a lot of lists.
I was going to say, I'm new to poetry, in the last few years. So I haven't got much writer's block because there's so many stupid ideas flipping around. But one of the things I do when I have trouble is sort of like what she said, I'll write down a word or two that I like, or I'll write down an emotion or something that I'm mad about maybe, or something I'm very happy about. I just saw a hummingbird or something, first time of the year or something like that. But then, so I started writing about it, and then I let the pen just heat up and go sort of recklessly. But then I find out that often that I'm nowhere, that the direction I'm going in was not related to where I started.
Isn't that funny how that works?
You gotta let that happen. You gotta let
Yeah.
that happen.
Yeah.
That first sentence might have been stupid, or
but it got you going.
it got me going. So
Yeah.
then now I've pretty much abandoned that first thing, and I'm going now. That's what I do. I tend to write pretty fast, and sometimes I don't write to rhyme. Usually I don't write to rhyme, so I'm not burdened by thinking, oh damn, I can't find a word that rhymes with orange.
No,
And
but I think
so-
a lot of your poetry is very what I call prose poetry. What I think a lot of people would recognize as prose poetry. It flows in a lyrical way that is very poetic, even if it's not in some certain poetic form. I love the way you write. So
Thank you.
keep doing it.
Your poetry is like your garden, George. Just
Thank you.
fascinating. Every turn, every movement. There's a new.
Well, using that, by the way, as a prompt, I take a lot of photos, as you know, probably, and a lot of times maybe it'd be a close up of like I don't know, a spider on a flower or something, and I like insects and birds and everything, so I don't have any. I get close to them all. If it's the same sort of thing, I say, well, I'm going to focus on that zinnia blossom that happens to have a beetle on it or something. But then the same thing when it happens when you're writing, you focus on something, that is quite small, and let it grow. You got to be free up your imagination, and you got to throw away some stuff, but you let it grow. So that's a little bit like with my photography of flowers and insects and birds. I've often taken a picture of some bird or something or flower and turned it into a poem, whether it's ekphrastic or not. It might start off ekphrastically and then I wander into some other world.
And we thank you for that. Anne?
I don't have writer's block because I never have enough time, and I certainly don't have a schedule. But when we were in Florida this last summer or last winter, January and February, I took a book that I have had for a long time. The name of it is Poem Crazy. It's by Susan G. Woolridge, and there are 60 short chapters, like a page or two or maybe 3 pages. And so every day while we were in Florida and I didn't have a house to maintain and I didn't have all the other activities that I am too busy with to be able to go back to work. I just picked a morning, about 20 or 30 minutes, and I would read that, and then I would write a page in a Moleskine notebook, and before the day got started, and then we'd go ahead and walk on the beach and play bridge and eat lunch and do all the things we usually do at the beach. When I got home, I had all of the things that you didn't have to do at the beach, like doctor's appointments. And this typical day this morning, my husband had physical therapy for his shoulder, and then we came home and got some groceries, and then after lunch we got the mail, and there was a letter that said something about my credit had been compromised. And so we spent the afternoon at the bank getting things resolved, and that's not abnormal. I mean, that's kind of, and then by the evening my eyes are tired. But the book is my normal approach. I'll find a book. I have 3 or 4 that I consider really good that I'll go back to, and I might read the chapter on rhythm and just take the whole week doing rhythm, and then I might read about something else, and whatever that chapter is. There's some great textbooks at the half-price books every once in a while, places like that. And then every once in a while, I'll just see a word or a phrase, and that'll get me going. But I must say, I'm not a very productive poet. Of my 60 days, I got 3 poems that I like. But I have 60 pages of things written in the book, so that was the point of the exercise.
It's what got you there.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I'll offer some thoughts. I guess my approach is a lot different than most people. I find that I hit a dry spot. I just try not to worry about it, and I don't try to push my way through it. It's kind of a Zen experience. You know, the harder you try to grab something, the more elusive it becomes. So I just sort of figure that there are some ideas there that are incubating, and they just need time. They just need to be by themselves, and I just don't worry about it. I will do a lot of reading of poets whose work I think is admirable, and who are trying to do the same kind of thing that I'm doing, either in terms of the reader's experience or craft. And I'll just kind of go on a real intense reading jag and hope that maybe some of that sinks in. But mainly, I think that writer's block happens for a reason, and that reason is that you have work that's latent, and it just needs time to be by itself to sort of incubate, and eventually it will come. There are some books on craft that I do read when I get into these spots, and some of them are very, very helpful. Richard Hugo he was a disciple of Theodore Roethke, and he has a book called Triggering Town, which is sort of how you resurrect these experiences that you've had, and how those will be the trigger that will sort of open the gate to a fallow time that you've been going through. Mary Oliver has some great work on craft, and one of my favorites is a book edited by Gregory Orr called Poets Teaching Poets. And these are essays written by poets whose names you would all recognize, and that's pretty helpful. There's one other thing I do too, to try to maybe jumpstart myself, but again, I just don't let myself get anxious over this. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's a half a year. But it'll pass, and just let it pass. But I find translation helps to be, work that you can do that will sort of get you going again. And a lot of times you want to translate someone who's working in a language where you're not fluent, so you use a co-translator to give you a bridge translation, the bones of the poem, and then you render it then into a poetic form that is faithful to the experience of the poem, but is of course a different language. And I've done that before. Nearly all of us know someone who's fluent in Spanish, so you can work with Garcia Lorca or Octavio Paz. There's a lot of really great Spanish writing poets that are helpful. But every community is multilingual, so it's not hard to find someone to be that bridge translator for you, and that can be a jump start.
Great. Thank you. Well, I jotted down a few things. One of the places that I find inspiration and just the point that you had made, Jim, that it is, I don't get panicked about it because I know it is all still a part of the process. It's just like adding the fertilizer and just waiting for the seed to sprout, and I can appreciate that part of the growth cycle of what ends up being born out of that moment. But I find that where I can find a lot of inspiration and get to my Zen place is by forest bathing. And that is, I'm a hiker, so I get myself in the woods and listen to the music of the trees and, get dirty and whatever. I do find that is, I think that's where my muses live when they're not with me directly, but the being in nature is very much a part of my writing process, no matter what the task is in front of me. Another thing that I do is when I'm really wanting to, have you always struggle to find that word? And Alice, I wrote down your idea of, just getting into words and finding its synonyms. Instead of finding synonyms, what I'll do is try to just take a moment, just be very focused and very aware. The Hindu term for it is called chitta, and I call it a poet's awareness, and just being so mindful of that moment and then just trying to encapture it through all of the senses and, just dive as deeply as I can into each one of the senses in setting it up with my words to fully describe it so that someone else could experience it at the degree that I experienced it. So I'm very sense-oriented in order to practice my pen, to get it flowing. I think you called it to George, to heat it up and let it go. That's one of the exercises that I assign myself as a sense prompting. And probably I too follow what you do, Jim, is I have favorite authors that speak to me and teach me when I need to be taught certain things. And one author that I've read everything that she's written is Natalie Goldberg, and I'm sure that you guys know Writing Down the Bones and the true meaning of the true secrets of writing. I just finished reading her most recent book, The 3 Simple Lines, where she went to Japan to see the birthplace and burial grounds of Basho, Busan, and Issa, because they're Buddhist haiku masters, and did a workshop with her just recently. But pretty much everything that she's written, I've read it, more than 2 or 3 times. She's my writing guru. And one author that I came across just recently where, it's one of those books you don't want to end, and that's Edward Hirsch. I'm sure that most of you know who he is, but he wrote this wonderful book called How to Read a Poem and Fall in Love with Poetry. and it's a collection of a lot of the essays that he wrote for the New Yorker and other publications. And he's a professor down, I think, in Texas. But his way of teaching and talking about words are just like, it's intoxicating. It's just, and I love getting drunk with Ed. So, I don't know how else to describe it, but those are what I use to write this summer's poetry that I've got going right now, and they're all scattered all over my desk right now. So we'll see what comes out of all of it. So those would be my three ways to get the job done. Anybody else?
I can go next.
Okay, thanks.
People were talking about going through the thesaurus. I know this is backward, but I really like the way this version is organized because it gives me just lists and lists and lists of related words. And I go through the thesaurus. When I can't think of anything else, I just open a page and go through some words and see where they go. Another thing I do is to try a poetic form that I either haven't done before or I haven't done for a long time. And I like haikus. Haikus sort of get, the brain going. So, and I always have notes that I haven't done anything with, so I can pull out some of my notes and see where they take me.
Well, just to let you know, Marilyn, as an aside, Alice is going to be doing a writing workshop on haiku at the Fall Rendezvous.
Okay.
I can learn more.
Yeah,
about
I'm gonna try to do a brief workshop on a few Japanese forms, not just haiku, but a few others. And so hopefully it'll be fun and interactive enough that people won't get sore butts from sitting. But but I agree with you. I think haiku is haiku works both directions if you think about it. Like write a haiku and then write a larger poem, inspired by the haiku. Or if you have a really, kind of a poem that just is going and going and going, hey man, narrow it down to a haiku. Good luck with that. That's harder to do.
I have a question about, you said you had an ekphrastic module or workshop or something. Is that recorded anywhere?
I think it's on our YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure I got it up there. Did we put that on our YouTube channel? I can't remember. I'll have to check.
It's a two-parter.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a
Two parts.
two-parter. That was from, was that from Spring Fling or was from that
It was February and March, I think.
February, March of the,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
before Spring Fling because
that was
Spring
the
Fling
contest.
contest was ekphrastic, so
Right.
we wanted to help people
Right.
get in the mindset.
Yeah. So we did a little workshop on what ekphrastic was and kind of how to do it. And it was fun. Yeah. That all should be on our YouTube channel, which there's a link to that on our website. I can't remember the YouTube channel, but
I'm going out there right now to see if I can find it.
Yeah, our competition for the annual Spring Fling, it's a members only competition, was an ekphrastic piece. So we did a submission call out for pictures or portraits to be submitted. And then we chose one from that, and then everyone responded to that particular piece for the contest.
I
So
don't
we had the
see-
2 workshops to get everybody ready to do that contest.
Yeah, I don't see it on the YouTube channel. I don't see something about ekphrastic prior to the
I remember that picture, and I found it so depressing, I didn't even want to write anything.
Whoops.
That might have just been,
no, I had
I
that.
didn't have good, I didn't have very good resolution, but it was all brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty desolate. Yeah.
I think some people
Got some really good
managed to,
pieces out of it, though.
yeah, I
I'll
think some
bet.
people managed to have
Oh, yeah.
a little brighter side on it, but yeah.
It's probably in the it might be in the YouTube playlist of
Well, while you look for
member
that, Chuck,
videos or
Marilyn, was
something.
there more that you wanted to add?
I don't know what you mean.
Did you have any other writer's block?
Oh, no, there was
Picture
just
trade?
those three.
Okay. Okay, so while Chuck's looking for that, who would like to share next?
I couldn't find it there. I don't see it.
I
I don't
can
see it on
share.
the YouTube channel.
I don't remember putting it up there, but maybe.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, John, me, and Natalie were all looking for a bunch of these videos and we couldn't find them either. So I didn't know
Yeah.
if it was like under a different YouTube. It could have been under someone's personal as well, but
I'll check those tomorrow. I know that I had trouble sending the Google has this thing that if you don't have a Gmail address, there are sometimes you can't see what your group or your organization is trying to send you, and especially if there's content in the video that's under copyright or something that they've flagged for,
Let's do this. Good morning.
What? Hello?
Somebody's playing a video.
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
But that's okay. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get to it soon. So I mean, I know that it is recorded. I know that they're working on it. So.
Yeah.
So, Paige, do you have any tricks of the trade for writer's block?
Okay, yes. So
Good.
my one trick of the trade is that I can, well, this might be more of a characteristic that I can't never really sit down or like be still or relaxed. So in that case of writer's block, if you just keep running into the same wall, you might like get over it, and like you might like keep running into a wall and there might be a door and then that might lead somewhere. So it's like kind of like an Alice in Wonderland kind of theme going where you just randomly like can jump through like certain holes and you just keep working on something. So if that means that your poetry isn't working that day, then do something that's still proactive that day. So make sure that you read like the word of the day, or make sure that you maybe did a riddle that day. Like working your mind in a similar format can still bring the energy that way, but still in a different way to alter your mind. So being able to do those like little clues in the newspaper, or like answering some of those like brain activity games and things like that, so that you're doing something different, but you're still working yourself in a different manner. So you're always helping yourself somehow. And
Do you
then
have
if
particular resources that you turn to?
I normally use like the newspaper for the little like games like Sudoku. And then also like if I'm just like online, I would look them up. The word of the day, I definitely look up definitions of things constantly just because I don't know words that well. But those are kind of like, I don't know, like keep your mind going, read a new book that you haven't read in a while, try to play one of those memory games. I have like those flashcards or things like that you can carry on you at all times. So like those kinds of things to not necessarily have to write poetry, but they still like answering riddles or still working your mind in short little blimps, and helps your mind expand so that you can see the world a different way.
If crossword puzzles count, I get mine every day.
There you
go.
There you go. Do you like, if you ever get stumped with the crossword, do you have to like, what do you do? Like, do you move on and do something different, or?
I don't get stumped with the crossword. I may have to go to the internet or the dictionary at some point.
Right. Okay.
But I'll finish it. I don't do the New York Times either. I do the Morning Call.
There you go. See, there,
doing
those things.
And
See, I think we all do it a little bit.
And I'm curious, have you ever, while doing a crossword, been suddenly inspired to write a poem in relation to something in the crossword?
It uses the other side of my brain.
It's
an analytical process. Not. I sometimes get inspired by reading an article or
Mhm.
the journal. Or I hate to go back over my journals. Most of it is really boring. But every once in a while, if I stick with it, I'll find this little thing and say, "Oh, I have a poem in here, and I didn't even realize it."
See, I would be doing blackout poetry just to keep myself awake. And I don't know, doing different styles does help out as well. So I think even just joining this group helps inspire and get through roadblocks as well, like the morning hug or whatever, just helps a little bit.
One thing I had done a couple times, I've got a lot of trash poems I started on a whim and couldn't finish, or they're just junk. But but if you read over, and I put them in my list of completed, even though they're not really completed. But and so I'll go to I'll find one of those in my list, and I'll go back, and maybe there was a slightly sane line in it. Or some value, and build a new poem.
Yeah.
That isn't always
I've done something similar to that, George, in that I'll have a poem and it's just not, it was just for me at that time, but then, shuffling things around and it ends up surfacing to the top of the pile somehow, some way. And what I'll do is I'll change the audience. Like the original audience, the person or persons I had in mind while I was initially writing it, when I come back to it, by happenstance, usually, I'll rework it, but have another audience in front of me and have that as my communication to this other audience to see how it morphs and, what can come out of that.
right. Now, I was building on that same thing about a different audience. Also, you can have a different pronoun. You could come from a different person. If you're writing and you're writing this thing as I, about me, something happened, and you're saying, well, this damn thing is too confessional, it's too candid, or it's too revealing, or it's too stupid, then I say he. And
I don't want to claim it. I didn't do that.
I escape from the me, to the he or her or any. And then I think, I can be a little more crazy, or I can be a little more bold and candid because I'm not responsible for her or him. So that's a trick I've done on a couple of them. And not everything is. So many people write only about me or I. I think that's a mistake. That's another topic.
I agree with you.
Good point. Guys, I've got like 4 pages of notes here, you guys. I think we could write a book.
No one's mentioned prompts, or have they?
Prompts are great. Prompts are great if you have writer's block. Yeah.
I talked about prompts and put them in a sense.
There's tons of books of prompts. There's a million prompt books out there.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, in fact, there's I think some of your Indiana poets had them at one of your weekend things where I picked one up called something about prompts. I forgot who wrote it or anything, but it's full of good prompts. And so there's plenty.
I bought one and it's sitting empty.
That's
need those prompts.
We did a prompt a day each day in the month of April for the last couple of years. Because that's the National Poetry Month. Yeah, so we tried to do a prompt a day in the month of April.
And our current second vice president, John Hinton, every Sunday on the public Facebook PSI page, he does a Sunday haiku prompt challenge, which he'll usually give like a word and then you're supposed to write a haiku with something. I don't know if you have to use the word. I guess it's just an inspiration for it. But just as always, I always say it, since that's our public page, just remember if you put your haiku in the comments, that's considered published. So the prompt, you don't actually have to respond on Facebook. You can just use the prompt in your own writing and save that haiku for a book publication or a contest submission. But if you put it in the comments on the public Facebook page, it is considered published on the internet. So always be aware of public versus private pages on Facebook. Private, it's okay. Like if you put something in the closed group page, that wouldn't be considered published. But if you put it on a public page, it's considered published. So that's why we're so careful about what we put on the website as well. We're not going to put things on the website like prize-winning poems because maybe those aren't actually published somewhere yet or something like that. So we're pretty careful about what we put on the website. I did put the link for the YouTube channel. I just posted in the closed group Facebook page for members the link for the YouTube channel, and I'll try to find that ekphrastic workshop. I remember we did it. I just don't remember. I mean, I just don't remember. I'm assuming we recorded it, but I don't know why. That kind of worries me if I don't have that video still. I'm not sure how I'm going to figure that out, but anyway, I'll look
Chuck,
for it.
have you got some
I would
tricks of the
say
trade to
I'm very much like Jim, that if I don't have anything to write about, I just don't write. And the last few years, that's been fairly common. If I'm caught up in things, the busyness of the world and what's going on in my daily life, I have a hard time relaxing to the point of being able to write. I feel like that flow, that sense of flow, kind of I have to feel free to do that. And when I have things pending that need my attention, I have a hard time attending to things poetic. So I just, I go with the flow, and when I have an inspiration, then I do my best. But I don't, when I'm in the mode like I'm in right now, I'll have an idea and I'll just put it in, I'll write like this morning, I think, or yesterday, I think it was maybe this morning, I wrote a verse, an idea for a poem, and I put it in my ideas folder, and I'll probably never go back to it. I'm not sure that how many of my so-called ideas that I've set aside that way I've ever really made into something. I had one unfinished poem that I finished for Halloween a couple of years ago, but I had fleshed that one out quite a bit. It was more than just a simple idea. It was just something, it just needed some polishing and a little bit of fixing in a couple of spots. But I don't really, I try not to worry about it. If I don't have poems flowing, then I just don't. And so that's the way it is for me. George mentioned the books, and I looked up a book earlier while people were talking, because I don't generally do well with prompts either. I'm not much of a write to a prompt person, but I did read a few years ago a book by Kim Adonisio, and it's called The Poet's Companion. And chapter by chapter, she talks about some aspect of poetry. And then at the end of each chapter, she has a list of probably at least 20 writing prompts related to whatever it was she was talking about in the chapter. So if she's talking about musicality, then she'll spend a chapter talking about having a poem feel musical, and then a whole bunch of prompts of ideas to just give a shot. And so I read this book, plotted my way through this book, and read all these prompts, and nothing excited me. But I got to the last chapter, and one of the prompts sparked, and I wrote a poem from that one. That whole book gave me one prompt that I developed into a poem that I really liked, and I'm really, really proud of. And it was fun for me to do, and it's fun for me to share, and so you know, it's, to me, it's kind of interesting to find where the poems are, you know, where they come from, because it's mostly just daily life for me. It's mostly reading the newspaper, or watching television, or reading other poems. You know, I read poems every day, and every now and then I will read a poem that will, you know, give me a sense of something I would like to write about. You know, maybe my take on the same theme that that poem is, or something. But you know, I'm not, writer's block isn't something I worry about, other than to think, oh, I'm not really writing much poetry lately. But I don't try to jumpstart my process. I don't really have a so-called process. So that's the way it is for me.
Thanks. You guys, these are absolutely wonderful, wonderful ideas. I'm hoping that we can all walk away with maybe 3 or 4 more things that we can add to our cache of goodies. Any of the final thoughts that we can put out on the table, or any other ideas that came to mind while other people were speaking? Or did we hear from, I'm thinking we heard from everybody, didn't we?
Yeah.
Did we talk about just like collaborating in groups and things like that as well?
No, but
Sure.
that's a great.
What's your
Yeah,
question? Where would you like the conversation to go?
So
This is a cafe class. It's very informal. So this is us teaching each other and putting it up.
I do know that the new thing now is like collaborating with other artists and kind of coming up with different things. So you're writing the same poem, or you are doing like a poetry reading. So like maybe you write the poem, other people read it, things like that, or act it out. Or they even use like different mediums. So I even know, I'm probably gonna present this to everyone as well, but there is an artist who's a photographer, and he wants poets to be at the gallery and featured in writing their poems that go along with his artwork, things like that. So it's more so being able to collaborate with other artists to get that inspiration, I think, as well, helps out. I know like once a month I at least try to go and meet up with Natalie and John and just kind of like write poems, whether it's we're coming up with different topics, or we're finding other prompts, or then we are writing a poem literally together, which that takes a little bit longer, but you know, there's always got to be a rhyme theme with him. But
That's really a good thought, and I know that works for a lot of people, especially when you're collaborating with artists in a different art form. You know, like a photographer and a poet,
right.
or a photographer and a guitarist, or I mean a poet and a guitarist or something. But I think that process really is dependent upon a personality type for a poet. And you know, I think some people are energized by that collaboration, and but for others, and I would be one of those, writing is a solitary experience, and I just have to get off by myself, and you know, just have these little mini hermitages, you know, to do anything that is going to be productive. So I think you really have to know who you are, and where you get your energy from, and not try to do something that works for someone else just because, well, it works for someone else. It's finding your way is as much a process of discovery as just writing itself.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
true. Can I tell you guys my most favorite collaboration story? It's real short. Okay, so I was at this event, I don't remember what it was, and this woman got up and read a poem that she'd written, and it was a poem about Marilyn Monroe, without using her name, but that's who it was about, you could tell. And I just loved this poem so much, I thought it was the most amazing poem, and I went home and I was so inspired, and some of you know that I also paint, and I made this textured painting where I outlined with texture, you know, the famous shot of Marilyn Monroe with her dress blowing up, and I actually did two not blowing up like a bomb, blowing up from the subway air in a 7-year itch. Sorry, I actually made 2 paintings of the different shots of those famous photographs, and I used the texture to create the image, and then I just painted the entire canvas white, so that the only way you saw the image was if you had the painting hanging and the light was coming from one direction, the shadow created by the texture gave you that little darkness so you could see the image. So they were basically white paintings if you looked at them just dead on. And I knew I was going to see this woman again at the follow-up meeting or art event that and I took one of the paintings, and I told her, I said, you're probably gonna think I'm insane, but I loved the poem that you read last time so much. I painted this painting inspired by your poem, and I'm happy to say that was how I met Sarah E.
wow.
The poet woman in question was Sarah E. Morin,
Wow.
our premier poet and one of my dearest friends, and she's with me with Community Education Arts. We ended up, founding the NICE project together, and she's involved with the Polk Street Review with me now and everything. But that was how I introduced myself to Sarah E. because I didn't know her from Adam. I didn't even know her name. I was just like,
precious.
yeah. And I eventually I gave her the painting, I think.
I was wondering if you let her have the painting.
Yeah, the other one actually
One.
sold. It was I had it displayed at our old venue, Logan Street Sanctuary, and someone bought it. But the smaller one that I actually liked better, I ended up giving to her a year or so later. It wasn't right away because it was just that was kind of an awkward first meeting. She was like, "Oh, okay, you weird lady who painted a painting of my poem." But then we back and forth have collaborated on many different things. She'll write a poem that inspires me to create a painting, and then she'll write another poem, and then I'll write a poem inspired by her poem, and we just go around and around with our collaborations. And
Then you write a poem and she creates a musical composition from it.
Exactly. I mean, I love collaborating with her because I never know where it's going to take us, and both of us have written poetry inspired by something the other one said or wrote or did or created or something. I mean, our friendship has really blossomed in that regard too as creatives. But I certainly couldn't do half the community education arts stuff that I do for our nonprofit without her. That's for sure. So boy, oh boy, was I glad she wrote that Marilyn Monroe poem.
I heard last night I was driving back from Mooresville, and I caught the World Cafe on NPR, and
Oh yeah.
she was interviewing David Crosby, and he's been doing a lot of collaborations recently. And he said about collaboration, he said that if you are an artist with a palette of 7 colors, there's only so much you can do with 7 colors. But if you get together with somebody who has a different 7 colors and you paint together, and suddenly you've got 14 colors to work with. And he said that's kind of how he feels about collaborating with other people, that it's just fun to share each other's talents and see where it goes. And
it is so wonderful because, those 17 other colors, that's a great way to describe it, because I was thinking about, while you were saying that, I was thinking about Sarah E. and myself. We are such different people. We think differently. We write poetry. Our process is different. And yet when we do these collaborations and things, it brings out our bests, and I think that's what that kind of goes with what you're saying, I think.
And by the way, that thing and Paige does this apparently and if you're talking about writer's block, call somebody and say you want to write a poem with them.
There you go. That's a really good idea.
And let them start it.
There you go. Give you something to work off of, right?
George, I've got your phone number.
Pardon?
Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah, George. Boy, did you just open that wide up.
That's right. That's right. Good.
But I also respect what Jim said about, writing poetry is a very solitary thing. And I think that's, I've heard Sarah E. say that so many times that, for her, especially writing is a very, very solitary, quiet space, time for her when she writes. And then, getting in the mindset of sharing those poems or entering into a collaborative spirit with someone else, that didn't, wasn't something that she ever really thought she'd be doing a lot of. And so I think she still approaches her poetry writing as a very solitary experience. And I feel like most poets over in historical time period have felt that poetry was a kind of a solitary endeavor. You're up in the garret, freezing in Paris or whatever, writing your poetry, or so.
But a poem, at least for me, a poem is it might be a solitary thing for me as a writer, but it's always the other is with me, that unknown
Audience
that whoever it is that and it may be someone who it may be that the poem is never read by anyone else only seen by my eyes, but there's this in the creating of the poem, there's the development of the relationship
somehow there is, yeah,
with the unknown audience or even the known audience, if that's the case.
It's like that for a painter too, at least for me it is. I mean, and as a photographer and a painter, I feel like that happens when I paint or when I take a photo that I'm particularly pleased with and I actually want to get professionally, done, printed on something or framed or something so that it can go in a gallery someday maybe or in a exhibit someday. I feel like, when I took that photo, I didn't know it maybe. And when I painted that painting, I didn't realize it maybe. But somewhere in the subconscious creativity of it, there was that building of a relationship. I was making a bargain with the future audience, just an assumption that it would be there somewhere. There is somebody going to see this. So I kind of feel like I know what you mean, Deborah.
Yeah, I see it. I see it like when I was taking notes for tonight, I wrote it down that it's like a private affair.
Ooh, that sounds just too intriguing.
And it's just
my life's way too dull for that. What are you talking about?
There's silence before it and then silence after it, and there you are. The relationship is molded. So
that's a good way to think of it, I guess. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting way to think of it.
Hey, if I go off, it's because we've got one heck of a beautiful lightning storm going on right outside my window here. I don't know.
Well, I'm not gonna be sharing anything in round robin, so I'm
not
gonna.
Either. Do we want to hold on for our round robins for next time around, or we can continue talking about what we're talking about since we seem to be inspiring each other? I mean, it's
after 8:30. We either need to end the Zoom or do round robin. We already lost Anne, so if you guys are gonna, Paige, if you have to go, thank you for joining us.
Yes, everybody, thank you, everyone. This was just so inspiring. It's been so delicious. Thank you so much.
If you guys do want to go ahead with round robin, Chuck said he would co-host that part, and I'm just going to step away and mute my mic, and you guys can do your round robin, and I'll come end the video later or something.
Okay. I'm going to try to get offline because I don't know what's going to happen with my computer with this. I'm surrounded by lightning right now. So fare thee well, everyone, and I hope to see you all.
I hope your power holds, Deborah.
In October. And keep an eye on the website because we'll keep everybody up to date on the fall rendezvous and
everything's up to date on there. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Love you. Bye.
We have a storm here too, so I think I'm going to go ahead and go.
Okay, everybody's going. Chuck, I'm just going to end the meeting if that's okay with you.
Fine.
Bye, Marilyn. It was great to see you. Bye.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Bye, Chuck. Take care. Bye.